Okay, what's going on? It says it's thinking about it. That's nice. It says live on YouTube in one place and then not live in another place.
Oh well, we're live. That's the main thing, I guess.
Oh, we're live.
Oh, that's good.
We are live. Right, let me turn my sound off, otherwise we'll have an echo. Okay, over to you, Karen.
Okay, hi, my name's Karen Ferguson, and today my story is called The Power of Lived Experience. So just to start you off, because my talk is going to cover domestic abuse to some extent, it was interesting to read that according to the National Centre for Domestic Violence, that in the year end of March 2022, 1.5 million domestic abuse related incidents were reported to the police. According to that same organisation, less than 24% of domestic abuse crime is reported to the police. So if my maths is correct, that makes it realistically more like 6 million, over 6 million incidents of domestic abuse every year. Followed up by, from the Office of National Statistics, can't say that word, statistics, the number of domestic abuse related CPS prosecutions in England and Wales decreased for the 5th year in a row to 54,515 in the year end of March 2021. So you can't help but ask yourself what's going horribly wrong here, because if there's over 6 million incidents and only 54,500 even get prosecuted, that's not talking about those that get an actual conviction, that's just those that get to court. What is horribly wrong in this situation? It's just not right.
Something's off, isn't it?
Something is terribly off. And it's kind of interesting, sort of following on from that. I've not done an in-depth review because, quite frankly, maybe kind of angry.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of research about this and looking at the jobs available for domestic abuse advocates, domestic abuse support, working with victims of domestic abuse, all those. I also looked at some jobs where there are on the rehabilitation side for perpetrators of domestic abuse. And I wonder if you can guess, Wendy, which one pays better?
Oh, let me see.
Yeah,
not the victims.
Interesting. No, it's interesting, isn't it? And this is not written down, and I'm not quoting clear statistics here, but when I did some research, the average one for working with a victim of domestic abuse is somewhere around £13 an hour, and for working perpetrators, it was more like 20 to 25. Now, it's not all about money. I'm not suggesting it is, but it's kind of interesting how much money is put into rehab or rehabbing perpetrators of domestic abuse. And you might go, well, that's a good thing. We can stop it. Yeah, it would be a good thing if we stopped it, because again, on research, recidivist rates are north of 50% in many cases. From my personal experience, I know that sending certain perpetrators of domestic abuse on these rehab 24-week courses actually does nothing whatsoever to do anything. So I kind of wonder where all this money is being wasted somewhere along the line. It certainly isn't stopping it from happening, not if rates keep going up. And it certainly isn't being spent in ways that victims and survivors of domestic abuse actually need it to be spent. So I'd like to know who makes the decisions as to where this money is spent and how they determine what is useful and what is not, because it doesn't seem to be affecting the people that actually need this.
Well, if the figures are skew to begin with, then the whole system is going to be off.
Well, exactly, because if only, less than 24% of incidents are reported to the police, well, first question is, well, why are more not being reported to the police?
Yeah.
Is it that people don't know what constitutes domestic abuse? Do people still think that it is just being beaten up? Is it just that? And if it's not that, why is there not enough education about prevention? It's not just supposedly helping prevent perpetrators from doing it again. But what about better education to educate people to spot it before it happens, or warning signs to perhaps be more able to question at least, or move away or leave the relationship before it gets to that point?
It's quite staggering, isn't it? With numbers like that, well, you're right. You have to ask the question, why is there no education around this? Because really it should be in the schools.
I think a lot of the education comes after the fact.
Yeah, well, by that time it's anyway.
It's too late. Yeah, it's absolutely too late by that point, because then what we're doing is we're trying to clean up, we're trying to pull back together, we're trying to rescue and keep people safe. Where actually, if we were able, I mean, we're never going to prevent it completely,
No.
but if we were able to prevent even...
Oh, your microphone's gone off.
If we were able to even a proportion of those things, it would make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Based on your experiences, everyone's got their own unique take on self-esteem and self-worth. How do you believe that the trauma it is that you've experienced has impacted on your self-esteem and self-worth and confidence?
I mean, it affected all of them, and I like that you've differentiated between confidence and self-esteem, because often they get kind of, I mean, they are similar. They're not different completely. They are similar, but there are differences. I think the problem with going through long-term abuse and long-term anything like that is that it gradually erodes your sense of self, of who you are, self-identity. You begin to feel that, you know, nothing is good enough no matter what you do, and you almost become reliant on somebody else kind of telling you if you ever do anything well, because they so often tell you that you don't. You lose the capacity to recognize when actually I am good enough in what I do. I am good enough at this. I am good. I am worth being loved. I am worth being cared for. I am worth all of those things. When someone is consistently doing, saying, behaving in certain ways, it leads you to believe that you're not, and more so when it's somebody that you believe and who claims to love you. It becomes such a murky place, and often kind of mental and physical exhaustion comes alongside it, because you're treading on eggshells all the time. You're trying to read the room all the time. You're trying to determine whether they're in a good mood or a bad mood, depending on how they look at you, or how much they've had to drink, or whether someone's annoyed them at work, or 52 million other things that might trigger them. The fact that, you know, you looked at them funny. All of those things kind of drag it down, because you just lose the capacity to remember that you're worth something.
In my head, what's going on is that continuous downputting ultimately leads to you being quieter,
Yes.
more withdrawn.
You do, because you learn that actually, I say you learn, you don't know you're learning it whilst you're going through it. It's not till after you go, What you learn is that in many ways it's safer to not say anything, or to leave the room, or to distance yourself in some way, shape or form, because otherwise the consequences aren't pleasant. Or you end up agreeing with things that you don't agree with, because you know if you don't agree, again, something is going to happen that you get too tired of fighting against.
Yeah, I get that. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between confidence, self-esteem and self-worth, because you're right, they all do get lumped together, but I always used to think you can have confidence but you may not have self-esteem or self-worth.
I agree. I mean, to me, self-esteem and self-worth, to me, they're pretty much the same thing. They're all about how I value myself, how I see myself, and ideally I am comfortable and happy with me, regardless of the situation. If I've got good self-worth, good self-esteem, if I get that wrong, well, I got it wrong. It doesn't mean I'm suddenly less of a person. If that person can't see my value or treats me badly, well, that doesn't affect me as a person because I've got good self-esteem and self-worth. But I can be confident in certain things, but not in others. And that doesn't necessarily mean my self-esteem, self-worth has changed. I could be confident talking to you today. If you asked me to go and perform brain surgery, well, I wouldn't feel confident in the slightest. I'd probably pass out, but you get my point. So I can be confident, and lots of people are confident in their job, for example, because they know it so well. You might put them in a different job and suddenly they're not confident. That doesn't affect, or if they've got good self-esteem, it won't affect how they feel about themselves. They can simply acknowledge, well, it's new, I don't get that, no, I'm not confident in it, but I'm still valuable as a human being because I have my own value.
Complex. It's quite complex, isn't it, when you're when you're in it, to actually know whether it's your self-esteem, because it's so ingrained, or your confidence when you're in it.
And trying to pull all of those things back afterwards, and learn to be confident and have good self-esteem. It's not a simple trait. You can find yourself becoming kind of overly assertive at times, or at least worrying that you've become overly assertive because you're not really sure where the middle line sits anymore. Because if you've been used to everything being put down that you've done, kind of going, oh, I'm good at that, you're suddenly going, oh my goodness, am I being really arrogant and big-headed here? And people are going, well, no, you did that, it was really good, you're allowed to say that. And it takes a while to find that middle ground of being comfortable, kind of patting yourself on the back, but not worrying that people are going to be going, oh no, look at this, she's big-headed, or whatever it is, because you're just not used to it.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff that plays out in our head, isn't there?
Yeah, it is. And it's a lonely place to be. And in a way, that's kind of why I gave my talk this title, The Value of Lived Experience, because apart from this, I've had cancer as well. And for that, I know that the most support I felt I got was from people that have been through it. Not because we're all the same, but because if you've not been there, it's hard to understand. It's good in a way they can't, because might have been they've been through it. It's the same with domestic abuse. You can learn the theory and you can put all abuse together. We're all different. There would be similar kind of traits running through it. So you might get support from someone who's experienced historic childhood abuse, for example. They comprehend what you're talking about, even though the experience is different. But if you've never had any of those things going on, you really can't comprehend what it's like and how it affects not just you when you're going through it, but how it affects you after that point. In my experience, I've had, well, he's gone now, he can't hurt you. Oh, well, you can move on now. Oh, but it's not that simple. It's not that simple. If you've got PTSD, for example, which I have and I know others have, your kind of nervous system's been hijacked by years of doing these things. You can't just go, oh, that's good, right, brilliant. I mean, I did mainly, but I can't sometimes control those things that happen. And it's not a case of, oh, just forget about it. Because if we could, we would.
And the brain doesn't work that way. The brain just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. And no, it doesn't. You can't just rinse it out, although that would be good.
No.
But my point being that talking to those with lived experience, they are more likely to listen, less likely to judge, and less likely to jump in with, oh yeah, that's like me. Oh yeah, that's like that time when oh yeah, that's like so and so, because they actually understand. And they're more likely, can't speak for everyone, they're more likely to ask, how can I help you? Rather than telling you what you need to be doing in order to feel better or get over it.
It reminds me of mental health. I mean, it's related, isn't it? It reminds me of when people have mental health challenges and you try talking about it with someone and they just completely just don't get it.
No.
Just get it.
And that's fine. But to be honest, to me, I would rather someone said to me, Karen, I honestly have got no sense of what you have been through. I can listen, but I'm not really here to give advice. Not that I'd be asking for advice, because I'd go to other places what I knew they would be appropriate. But sometimes to someone, just listen, but listen without having those judgments kind of sitting in your head of, at one point I go, oh, well, I'd have kicked him out ages before that, or I'd have done this, or I'd have done that. And I'm like, but you're not me, and you weren't living it. And while you live in it and you can't see it because you're so in it, it's very easy to say, oh, I'd have done this and I'd have done that. But actually, but you don't know that you would have done those things.
I think statistically as well, it's not the case, is it?
No, it's not.
Not the case.
I think, I can't remember, it's something like 7 times.
Yes, 7.
I think 7 times, something like that, that people try
7.
to leave before they actually leave.
Yeah. I actually think it's more than that, but they say
I can't remember, it was more, it was quite a lot though.
Yeah, no, it is 7. It is 7, but I actually think it's more than that.
Oh, it probably, yeah, I'm sure it is. Or the amount of times you think about it as well, and you know, can you convince one way or the other, or you're threatened, or they threaten to do something to themselves, or you know, all of those things.
The emotional blackmail, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That old chestnut of, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and it's your fault, and you're like, okay, until you get to the point you go, do what you like, because actually, it's not my fault, it's yours.
How has those experiences that you went through, would you say, that trauma, how has it played out later on once you've come out of it? I think we've spoken about it briefly.
Yeah.
Can you think of some things that really sort of played out for you?
I think part of the change came after the chemo, and the fact that I decided I wanted to be more confident. So I started to be, and that was the beginning of the end, because he didn't like it. So it was really hard, but I kept going, and you know, all right, it was a rather loud crashing finality to what he did of driving into my house, but it didn't stop. And actually, I think it helped greatly in that by that point I'd learned that it wasn't my fault. Yes, I could have done things differently, but I didn't, because what I did was what I thought was right at the time.
Yeah.
So I have occasional moments of going, you know, I should have, or why didn't I? But not so much. And I don't blame myself for it. I think the other thing is that it's made me more determined to make sure that other, and I'm going to say women, I know abuse happens to men, but my experiences as a woman, so that's the only way I can speak about it, is to try to provide ways that other women become more educated about abuse, red flags, and to help them build their confidence and self-esteem so that they have a much better capacity to spot it, to walk away, to stop it, to become more assertive, to state their needs, and all of those things that can help stop finding yourself in situations where you're putting up with things just because it's, well, just because it is.
Yeah, it's something, my brain had something, now it's gone. Come back, brain, come back question. Oh, that's what I was going to say. And you've really turned that into a passion now, haven't you? Because I know you're doing, oh, forgive me, I can't remember the name. You'll tell me anyway. The confidence program that you're doing now. Tell me about that.
I have 2 things that I do now. One is called Life Magazine for Women, and it's aimed at women over 40, and it's life, love, and everything else. And it's all sorts of things. There's educational, there's people's own stories. I write some of my own stuff in there sometimes. Again, it's a place to give women over 40 a voice. In our first, I think it was 6 or 7 months, we gave 10 women their first opportunity to have something published in a magazine, and that was brilliant. And we're growing our supportive audience and list of contributors as well, because again, it's a community of women of doing different things. We have male contributors as well, but mainly it's women. Their content is female focused, they know that. And I also, because I come from a background of therapy and coaching anyway, I started a company called She's Confident Coaching. So our programs are, they range from 6, 8 and 12 weeks, and they are designed to help women. So some are relationships, as in all relationships, because abuse can come from not just romantic relationships. There's one geared towards just more so romantic relationships. There's one for work, confidence and self-esteem. There's different courses. We do have one specific to building confidence after domestic abuse. But it's not just about the coaching that we do. We are recruiting other women to train to coach within our organisation. They're self-employed. They get to build their business how they want with our support. Because to me, part of the reason lots of women stay, is they don't have the financial capacity to leave. And we want to be instrumental in helping women build a successful business where they can stand on their own 2 feet completely financially, whether it's them or them and their children or whatever it is, because they have done this. And because we come from that place of understanding that, we support them, they support us, and we support the women that we coach. So, we've come at it from all angles because we think it's important to acknowledge that, all right, money's not everything, but having your independence can make spotting a abusive or challenging relationship easier to leave, because you can do so more readily.
Yeah, and you touched on something really interesting there, and it was mentioned by somebody yesterday, I think Catherine, about the financial implication is that, the abuse, the trauma is so wrapped up in that relationship that money becomes a big issue in that relationship.
It is. Yeah, they can leave you with debts. Mine stole from me, caused thousands and thousands of pounds worth of damage to my house, and that was out without looking back and looking at all of the other items of property he had deliberately punched, thrown, smashed, destroyed, and any other number of things. So yeah, finances do play a huge role in it. And I know for a fact, speaking to people and myself, I know it kept me here longer than it should have done. And he said to me once at the end, I never wanted you to have money because I thought you'd leave. So he deliberately took it to prevent me from going. So having your independence and your own money, it doesn't 100% mean you'll never find yourself in a challenging relationship. But if you've got enough money to be able to rent or buy your own home and look after yourself and look after your children and not be reliant on their child maintenance or lack thereof, or the pathetic amount you get awarded, or any of those other things, that helps your self-esteem. You're building something that's important. You're supporting others. You've got to support yourself. And I think, you're also going to be working with other women who are secure enough in themselves that they want to help you build your business. They're not trying to put you down because they want to build theirs. And because they've all got that same drive to support and to grow, they're going to push you along or pull you along on those moments when you kind of go, oh, what am I doing? I can't do this.
Yeah, there's a lot of those, let's face it.
There's a lot of those. Yeah, well, there can be a lot of those. I think the problem is, if you're not careful, you end up surrounding yourself. On one of the exercises I'm going to suggest in a minute is the people you surround yourself with. Because if you're surrounding yourself with other people who don't have that same drive and desire, you can very easily find yourself stuck where you are, because it's easier to just kind of stay, because I might lose friends otherwise. But actually, they're not really friends if they're keeping you stuck in a place that's not good for you.
I think anyone who doesn't support you wanting to focus in on education, earning more, just learning, there's something wrong.
There's a lot that say they support you, but their words, actions actually don't back that up.
Yeah. So you just spoke about it a little bit, and that was the exercise that you're going to share.
It's a relatively simple exercise. Well, it's a simple one to explain, but I appreciate that it might create some emotional challenges for people. And it's pretty much what I just said. Take a look around your friends group, your family, your colleagues, whoever is in your life on a regular basis, and determine whether they actually support you in your growth as a person. And if they don't, either by doing nothing or by keeping you where you are because it serves their purposes, those are the people you need to start moving away from. And a scary moment, you might go, but I'm going to lose nearly all my friends. Yeah, you might feel that for a little while. However, if you then start focusing on yourself and the things you can do, and you connect with more people, Magazine has done that. I've met so many new people working with you and the other amazing women taking part in this summit. Amazing people, new connections. That's what it's taken. Now I know I could message any of those women and go, help, I'm struggling with this. And even though I've not met them all, I know that they would reply to me, but they'd do so in a way that was supportive and helpful. They wouldn't make it about themselves. They wouldn't tell me what to do. And I think that's the difficulty. If you're always asking someone else's, what should I do? What can I do? Most people are probably going to come at it from thinking they're helpful. Some will come at it because it serves their purpose to keep you where you are. So if the people start not telling people things, be more discerning what you tell the people around you. You don't need to share where you're going and what you're doing in terms of your life, your business, or anything like that with anybody. And if you're going to, which is fine because we all do, make sure you're sharing with the right people, because there's just as many toxic friends out there as there are toxic partners. Sure. And in some ways, they're more damaging because you really aren't looking for it.
Well, why do things keep popping in my head and then flowing away? Flowing away? Flowing away. Come back. Oh, that's what I was going to say. It's come back now. Now I've got to try and regurgitate it so it makes sense. I think some of those friendships at that time were where you were at that time, but moving beyond those is just a sign that you're growing.
Yeah,
it's just,
and not everyone does grow. Not everyone wants to grow, and that's fine. That's nothing against those people that want to stay doing what they're doing. That's absolutely their right and their choice, and you know, they can do that. But if it's not what you want, you risk getting stuck there unless you're prepared to kind of move away from the people that are not. It's not about what can you give me, it's about what am I getting, what am I giving. They've got as much right to say you're not actually bringing anything to my life, and that's fine too. They're probably less likely to do that because potentially they're less self-aware. But you are self-aware enough to know that it's not working for you. It probably won't get any better, because if you continue to grow even a little bit, the gap between you and them will widen and it will create more challenges, and you might find yourself living and being less than who you can be to try to fit into a place that actually you no longer fit into. It
can be more painful. I think it can be more painful than actually letting go and moving on. Is the staying.
Yeah, it is indeed.
Yes, been there.
Absolutely, I think lots of us have, and I think that's the thing. You know, with the learned experience, I think it's important to note here that I'm talking here really about learned experience where you've worked through at least a fair percentage of your own stuff. I don't mean learned experience where you keep yourself and others in your pit of despair or pain or whatever it is, because that's not helpful to them, and it's not helpful to you, because all you do is re-traumatize yourself every time you talk about it. So the lived experience really, for me at least, and you know, with the domestic abuse course that we run, we will only have coaches running that who have experienced abuse, because they are the only ones that will understand that. The rest is about confidence, self-esteem, being a woman, relationships, and all women have experienced that. But that one is specific to that, because it's important to us that although they're not sharing their story, they comprehend those additional things and that additional support. But we also check when we recruit that we make sure that they are at a place where they're not going to re-traumatize themselves by having to work with these things, because they are then not recovered enough for it not to consistently affect them, and that's the last thing we want. So lived experience is important, providing you're at a stage of recovery or working through, whatever term you prefer, that is not damaging you further to be able to work with other people going through a similar experience.
And I think mentoring is the most powerful thing. To me, mentoring, there's nothing that beats mentoring, not counselling. Mentoring is really special and unique, because you can play with the relationship more. But also what you were just saying just reminds me of good supervision.
I mean, our coaches do get that. That is part of working with us. They do get support. They get support to grow the business, but they get support as well. Because we acknowledge, we're all human beings. We have days when we question, we have days when we get it wrong, we have days when we go, what am I even doing? I've got no clue what's happening here. But again, finding the right people to be able to listen to and go, okay, what can we do? What do you need? How can we help? Rather than going, oh yeah, that's me too. Oh yeah, I've been there. Oh, you're like, okay, no, I've got my problem, but no, I've got your problem too. And actually, I don't quite know what to do with that, because what's in the first. But to have that where it's that, you can contact people, and they're not going to judge you, question you. They're just going to go, okay, tell me, okay, where can we go? What can we do? Let's, and that's important, because as you grow your own business, as you grow as a person, you're always going to have moments where you're like, no, can't do this. No idea. Don't know why I'm here. Don't know what I'm doing. What's my name today? Because I just can't, we all have moments like that. So it's important to work with people that understand that concept, but from your perspective and not just about themselves. And
I love that you look at it holistically. It's not just one dimension. It's holistic, multi-dimensional. I think too many things are not holistic enough, and I think that's where they fall down.
I agree. It's the whole body thing. It's not just one thing, because if it was, we could write one book and give it to every single person and go, right, follow all those steps and you will all live an amazing life. And it doesn't work, because we're not all the same. And so it can't be all the same. And it's one of the reasons why, although our programs are standard kind of programs for us, our clients will get to choose the coaches that they work with to a huge extent, because their bios will be in there and their backgrounds will be on there. So it's about the right coach and the right client at the right time, rather than, well, that one's free, you work with them. Well, I don't like that. For whatever reason, I'm not gelling. Doesn't matter. They're on our list. It's like when you go to the doctors and they give you counselling. Well, there's your counsellor. Well, I don't like them. Well, I don't care. That's who you've got, or no one. That doesn't work to me. That doesn't work in the slightest. It's got to be, you've got to have trust. If you don't have trust, then it's never going to work, because you're not going to be open enough to go, I've struggled with that exercise. You just go, yeah, I've done that. You haven't.
Karen, so you've got the exercise where you're just observing and looking around you, looking at your relationships. What would be the next step after that? Would people need to get support to help manage those relationships?
They may do. Yeah, I think, therapy is a good one. Coaching, obviously, I'm a fan of coaching. It's something that we've done for a long time now, because it's more proactive and it helps push you along. I think part of it in there is, when you're taking stock of the people around you, is to kind of start thinking about what do I actually want from life? What do I want to do? And then start joining groups that do that, or looking at things, or, there's so many opportunities to start looking towards putting yourself out there to find people similar to you. Take experiences. I know you because we both agreed to write a book, I think, in the first at the same point in time or something like that. And I've known you, I don't know how long I've known you now, but it's quite a long time, and we've worked together one-to-one. You've been my coach, and you've been helped me instrumental in create that. So then I get to help those people over there. So, but that was because we both at that moment said yes to something. And it's saying yes to things that, even if they're scary and you don't know if you can do it. I didn't know if I could write when I first started writing. I'm sure there's people that tell you I can't, but that's fine too. I don't mind.
know that feeling?
I'm happy. I did it, you know.
But imposter syndrome slipping in there.
Yeah, oh no, I didn't. Well, the fact is, I kept going. I didn't know if I could do it, and you know, I think we all question ourselves now and then. But I discovered recently that us published authors, you included, of course, there's only 1% of us in the world that have been published. I was like, wow, that's kind of impressive, isn't it? Really? But yeah, I think identifying what you want, because if you're not kind of being tied down or dragged down by the old stuff. What gives you passion? What makes you want to get up in the morning? Even if you can't do it right now, start writing it down, start planning it, start thinking, start looking at. I mean, some of our courses use visualization and affirmations and things like that, because without having a clarity in your mind or written down as to where you're moving towards, you're just kind of flapping about all over the place, no idea where you're going. And then it's about saying yes to things, saying no to things that are old, saying yes to things, and meeting new people along the way, because that's what generally happens.
Yeah, it's I think it's the difference between, and I often say this, the difference between having the doors closed or gently opening the doors and stepping into new possibilities and opportunities.
And that's scary in a way, because some people you sit there and go, well, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I have days and I'm like, I don't know, am I doing the right thing? Do I know what I want to do? And then I come on things like this, and I've been on a few now, and I talk about what I do, and I'm like, yeah, that's clearly what I want to do, because I love what I do. And when I talk about it, I know it's what I want to do, because it's the thing that makes me passionate. It's the thing that drives me forward. It's how I can see the vision for the future. So talking about it out loud, even if it's to yourself, you'll soon determine whether it's something that you're going to love or not, because it depends how you feel when you talk about it. If you're excited and enthusiastic, chances are you need to be following that at least for a while to see if it's the right thing for you. If it's well, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that, but you know, then that's probably something to steer clear of, at least for the time being, because it's not the right thing. It's not the right thing for you.
Talk to myself a lot. I have conversations with myself a lot.
I used to walk along and people like, who are you talking to? Oh, me. It's fine. I do it a lot. Don't worry about it.
I do it when I'm on the bike. When I'm on the motorbike, I'll start having conversations with myself.
I do it in my car quite a lot, actually. I do that. I like that silence in my car. I kind of often predetermine what I'm going to think about on my journey, so that my thoughts always stay kind of in sync with where I'm going, not my destination, but my destination. And it keeps my thoughts focused there. And sometimes I'll do it in my head and sometimes I'll do it out loud. But yeah, I talk to myself a lot. Sometimes it's not as positive as it could be, but I'm pretty good now at bringing it back to where it needs to be. So yeah, but yeah, talk to yourself. It does help.
But I think it's good because it makes you more conscious. You know, if you can actually have an honest conversation with yourself, which is quite hard to do with other people, you can say anything to yourself, and you know when you're sneaking out of things, you know when you're not telling the truth, you know exactly what questions to ask. I think it's a really good way to become more conscious, like in the exercise that you were saying about, you know, just that's you having a conversation with yourself, you know, having a look around, having a look at your relationships, thinking about, is it what you really want? It's a really nice, honest conversation with yourself. Can't go far wrong with it unless you're being really mean to yourself, which I don't advise.
Yeah, which we all have moments of, but we hope not to. I remember reading something a while ago, and it was something along the lines of, you ought to be prepared to walk away from any relationship at any time, no matter how long it's been there, if it's no longer right for you. It was something like, I can't remember who said it, it's not my quote, but and it's true, because it's all too easy to stay. And I don't mean, I'm going to change friends and relationships every 20 minutes because, you know, I'm not getting the attention I want or whatever it is. It's much deeper than that. But if where you are, if you are unhappy way more than happy, or even if it's level, something's horribly wrong and something needs to change. And if the relationship, you know, some of our programs are designed to help people women decide whether they want to stay or go. We're not about forcing people to leave relationships. It's like, let's look at whether it's working or not. If it's working, what are we going to do to, or not working, but we want to keep it? What can we do to determine whether it's worth saving? How can we do that? Or actually, no, we've determined it isn't. Well, okay, what do we do now then?
Yeah.
So you've got both sides to that. Sometimes it's just that we get stuck in old ways, and we've changed, but we forgot to talk to our other half about how we've changed, how they've changed, what we want now. Because if you've been with someone since you're 23 and you're now 64, chances are you've probably changed just a little bit. So, well, I hope. I would hope.
Yeah,
that
I'd
people
like
are
to
just-
think so.
Some
I'd
people
like to think so.
That's up to them. But we have to know ourselves that we've changed. We have to know that what we want is different. It doesn't mean we have to have that different with someone else. We could have it with the same person, because they might want something different. They might just never have thought, oh, what could I do? How has changed? What do I want now? But that's about conversation. But then again, that often then comes back down to confidence or self-esteem, to be able to risk, for want of a better word, the status quo changing in order to create something that we hope is better.
Yeah, got you. Karen, how can people find you, and how can people find out about your courses?
The best way is to visit our website, which is shesconfidentcoaching.com. Nice. They can contact us through that. The lists are on there. There's information on there about becoming a coach as well. We also have blogs of varying subjects on there too. All of it is on the website. So we have shesconfident.com, shesconfidentcoaching.com. We also have shesconfidentcoaching.co.uk. So we've got both of those covered as well.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Wendy. Always a pleasure.
Oh, I'm not quite sure how to take that.
Take it in a positive way.
I will. Final thoughts? Anything you'd like to add before we go?
I just think if you can find a way to begin valuing yourself, it's not selfish, it's important. If you begin to value yourself, then things in your life generally start to shift, because you come from perhaps considering yourself at the bottom of the pile and everyone's more important than you, to putting yourself at the top of your own life. That doesn't make you selfish or arrogant or anything else. It means that you acknowledge you have your own value within your own life. And if you start to do that, your world can begin to open up in a much more positive fashion.
Yeah, that's a good note to finish on. Take Karen.